Welcome to Music Breakdown, Columbus, Ohio's own music analysis podcast. I'm your host, Travis Osterloh, and on today we have an excellent interview with my buddy, Joey Stuckey. So he is a songwriter, a song producer, a musician, and a touring artist as well. So he's been around the industry a long time, and he's got a lot of experiences to share in this long interview. So you get a little bit of pieces of every bit of the music business in this interview too. So such a well-spoken individual, such a guy who overcame a lot of obstacles and willing to share his experiences and how excited he is about what he does on a day-to-day basis. So we have 3 segments as always on these interviews. The first segment, we get to know a little bit more about who Joey Stuckey is, about how he found music in his life, what he did with it, how he refined his craft, how he started writing songs, and also what it's like to be a professional musician or in the music industry today, and those little parts itself. So there's a lot of gold nuggets through this, not just as a musician or a guitarist or a songwriter, but just being in the industry as well. So that's why this interview went super long. He's just got a lot to say and a very interesting individual. So in segment 2, we break down 3 of his songs, and each song 7 minutes. So there is a lot of contextual gold sprinkled throughout every song. And that's kind of why I like his songwriting, because there's just a lot there that makes every single one of those more interesting. So check those out and take those little gold pieces, use them in your songwriting, in your solos, and your ability to perform with your friends as well. And then in segment 3, as always, I have my students who ask Joey questions of what it's like to be a professional musician, what it's like to struggle learning guitar, and what it's like to work with other musicians as well. So speaking on that, this podcast is sponsored by Osterloh Guitar Academy. So are you struggling to learn guitar? Are you struggling to make the serious guitar gains that you're expecting to do so? Do you have a guitar collecting dust in the corner of your room, but you don't know the steps to really get started to learning how to play guitar efficiently? Or have you been playing for 5 to 10 years and just struggling to make the gains that you want and just learning a song every once in a while and not really improving and kind of staying stagnant, and are looking for a challenge, a way to make you better? So go to osterlohguitaracademy.com, submit a message, and we'll get talking about how I can make you a better musician today. So I hope you guys enjoy this interview. I do understand it's long, so if you stick through it, you're going to get a lot out of it. So I hope you enjoy. All right. I knew exactly where to stop that.
You did a great job.
Yeah. I tried to prep as much as I can, trust me. So I really love the fact that when you're using a synth, and something I'm finding out the more that I'm using these kind of plugins with synths, is if I try to stack full chords on it, it doesn't have the same effect as it was if you were to just drone maybe the root note for your chord progression, whatever you're using.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's my limited keyboard skills coming to fruition there. Yeah, I love that you feel that it has a lot of space, because that was the goal. And I actually, for the vocal, I actually, although I am putting some delay on it, I actually like put the microphone at one end of the room, and I sang it all at the other end of the room.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. So that's
Because it sounds like you're super far away. Did you
that's
like
why.
use your full voice from across the room?
I did.
You had to have.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that's why there's such a space in there, and that droning is really important. You want to let it just kind of sink in and give it some gravitas.
No, for sure, because it definitely, what you were targeting there, you could feel every bit of it. And as it progressed, as you were going through, it was to me, it was very evident that the layering as it was coming in made it really cool, and it could last a longer period of time because you started introducing these little lines that stack. All right, so we just left off talking about the textures going into how spaced the first minute 8 went, with layering the different guitar parts, having your vocals come in, and just really setting the mood, going into what I like to point out for people, and might be more evident for you in your history, is resetting. So that quick 1 second dead silence, and then what we stopped on,
right,
to reset the mood to go into something else, especially as a transition piece.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's you want, it has a little bit more of an impact if you give it a second of silence.
It builds it in the same way that you would play guitar fast to build tension. It kind of does the same thing, because it leaves them hanging. They're like, I don't know where I'm at right now.
Exactly.
I don't know what's going to happen. What's coming?
That's exactly right. It really does a great job of sort of getting you focused for a second there.
Yeah, it does. And it's just a great little trick, that if you're going to have something that's pretty abrupt, to just toss in there and take off, and they'll be more ready to receive something than it to be thrown in there. I feel like thrash, it's just all thrown together. Like you're getting it all at once, but
yeah, that's true.
In a better composition way, this is an excellent tool to use. All right, so in this next section now, cut that too late. Whoops. So I got to give you credit. That guitar sounded really good. It sounded like it was a single coil feel.
That's true. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And just having that little repeated theme. I noticed, like, after each verse that you had that repeated theme with the guitar wise to keep it familiar, as something to just continue to go back to. And that always feels really good, to give them a place of familiarity and then venture off.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. And you know, and I have a variety of amps and different things that I use for different spots. But yeah, there in the verse, you basically have the acoustic guitar, almost acting more as a percussion instrument, kind of in the background. And then you've got the main sort of guitar arpeggios there in the front. And then, of course, you got the bass running vocals and drums. And so, yeah, and as we move into the chorus, there's definitely a change in what happens with the guitar. So yeah, but I do enjoy that. I think it's a comforting, familiar lick that has a nice way of grounding what you're listening to.
And then to open up with it right away, to be like, hey, get used to this. This is coming back.
Absolutely.
So I dig that. So how many layers would you say that opening track had? That opening section before you went into your vocals?
Before, so just you mean just the guitar, like after the intro, but
yeah, like how many different individual tracks did you have for that? Because it sounded like it was pretty heavy.
Yeah. So on drums, there's I usually have somewhere between 8 and 14 drum mics. That particular song probably had about 8 to 10, because I had a smaller kit when I was recording that.
Yeah.
So and then on the guitar, the electric guitar playing the arpeggio line, that was a Fender ProSonics amp. They call it some people call it the Red Lizard because it's got red leather on it. With a Strat, with a Strat guitar, with some custom pickups. They're not the stock Strat pickups. And so there was that. So that's 2 tracks for that guitar. And then on the acoustics, there's 2 different acoustics running. Each has a mic on it and a direct. So because I'm having 2 acoustics, if I was doing just 1 acoustic, I would have 2 to 3 mics and the direct box. But on this, I just did 1 mic on the 12th fret and then a DI on the acoustic. And there were 2 different acoustics there. There was a Martin 6-string and then a Seagull 12-string strumming along. So, but they're kind of layered underneath. They're not something you really notice very. You hear the 12. You can hear that there's a 12-string when I play that lick. When I play that little lick at the beginning, you can tell that's a 12-string.
Yeah.
But that same 12-string kind of strums along in the background. So it's there kind of for it's more of a smearing effect. It's not supposed to be super articulated with the rhythm. If I had to say a band that I was I didn't consciously try to emulate anybody. But if I had to say emulating somebody, it'd probably be like Traveling Wilburys or Tom Petty or something like that, as far as the tone of the acoustics and the electric.
No, that was
which
I heard a lot going into that, and I was wondering, I'm like, how many do you got? I'm used to like my recordings. I'm used to you have pan left, pan right guitar, lead, center, and then drum MIDI, because that's how I work with, and that's just straight 4 or 5 tracks, and that's it.
Right. Well, and the thing is,
way more than that.
Oftentimes I'll record more than I need or that I use, so that I have options later in case I change my mind. But I think the best thing to do is you can get away with a lot fewer tracks if you have a firm idea of what you're going to do when you come in. So, but I will say, well, I've got a really powerful computer. Yeah. And I'm like, track size is not a problem. There's no, so like, I probably won't use this mic, but let's throw it up and just, if I need it, it's there.
That's all right. If you you need plenty of options, especially when you're building it, and then you have to be creative with it too.
Right.
Instead of just, hey, we need to go back and retrack now.
Right.
That's no fun to nobody.
No, that's a terrible idea.
No, that's for sure. So we'll get into this chorus here.
Miles isn't far enough away from you. 10,000 miles isn't far enough away. Like a voodoo doll, you stuck your pins in me. Long, sharp, and straight to my heart. Like a kiss with your eyes wide open with nobody there. Leave my dreams and appear somewhere else. 10,000 miles isn't far enough away from you. Far enough away. 10,000 miles isn't far enough away. Gotta get away. You're still.
All right. So the chorus, how loud do you think your voice is on 1 to 10 at that point?
Oh, probably about 7.
Probably about 7 at that point. That's still pretty loud. I'm not gonna lie. One of the things I tell my students when we do jam workshops.
That's great.
And one of the things I told them on the very first one that we did was a view of dynamics.
Absolutely.
Which is, okay, you might start on 8, but you're not going to continue to go up and right at 10 the whole time, you know?
No.
You have to push and pull, and it's got to cater to what's going on within the song. And one of the things I like to point out to them, because they'll be listening and watching this, is notice that the verses are very pulled back. I would say is more of a 6 or a 5.
Absolutely. You're right.
At least on an instrument level, so that way the vocals can come out and be a little bit more present. And even with that turnaround, that themed bit being kind of on the same level as the vocals, so it makes sense and it stands out all the same. And then when the chorus comes, takes that 6 and then goes up to what yours is 7. I'm like, this is an 8 right here, when everything just comes in and hits you hard and then comes back down to go into that second verse.
Yeah, you're absolutely 100% right. And I'm using a little bit more full voice on the chorus. Mm-hmm. And I'm using a little bit more, I'm actually rasping my voice and singing a little softer and putting in a little vocal fry to give a little bit more attitude. Mm-hmm. So on the choruses, on the verses. So the verses are definitely more laid back in that sense. But the chorus, in my mind, when I think about songwriting, mm-hmm. I always think about the chorus as like the headline of the newspaper. Oh, yeah. It's the thing mm-hmm. that screams off the page that makes you want to pick up the paper and read the full story. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I think of it. So the choruses are the headline, the verse is the fine detail, the actual article, and then you have a bridge or a solo or something like that to give you a little departure so you don't get bored, and then you come back for the rest of the story. So that's kind of how I think of it.
Oh yeah, it is the headline because it's what people remember and what they sing along to as they hear it and listen to it again.
Absolutely.
100%. So no denying it there. So for vocals, did you double track any of the vocal lines in itself? I don't know a lot about it, so I'm kind of shooting.
Yeah, absolutely. So
dark here.
The lead vocal is just a single, because I was changing technique. I cut the verse vocals on one track, and then I cut the chorus vocals on a different track, just because they were going to require different amounts of compression and stuff like that, and maybe different EQ, just depending. So then there's 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there's 6 layers of backing vocals. So there's harmony vocals, and all those are doubled. Mm-hmm. So all the harmony vocals are doubled, and then there's also a part that answers. Mm-hmm. So there's a part where I sing 10,000 miles isn't far enough away for you, and then I answer that with far enough away. Mm-hmm. So I there's a little answer track, and those are doubled, and those are kind of pulled behind the lead vocals, so they're not as loud. Yeah. So there's a bunch of vocals.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. And that's what makes it neat, is you hear all these little idiosyncrasies you don't hear the first time through. It makes the track more enjoyable as you re-listen. It's like here's this little breadcrumb. Here's this little.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because that's one of my common staples of technique, is to add a little something or take a little something away, so that after you've heard it the 57th time, like, oh man, I never noticed that. I just heard something new today. Oh, yeah. That's my goal. That's excellent. No. Glad to hear it's working.
Catching me already.
Yeah.
So, all right. Sorry. You're rolling into the next bit.
You're still on my mind.
All right. So that little pre-solo, or would you say post-chorus or breakdown?
Yeah, just like a solo. Yeah, it's a solo over the verse chords.
Mm-hmm. So one thing I noticed, again, talking about dynamics still, is you're still bringing that mood down and kind of riding that chill vibe until that solo comes in and it hits a little bit harder. It gives you a bit more of a punch when it comes in.
That's true. I totally
And
agree with that. Yeah.
what I
Oh,
like,
yeah.
what I liked about
You're
it
talking
too.
about the. Oh, I'm
Mhm.
sorry. I was
Yeah.
you're talking about that little "You're Still on My Mind" section. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that would be chorus, a post chorus or a chorus part 2. Yeah.
hmm And what I liked about when you first jumped into the solo itself, it's not immediate rips. It's you're kind of walking these eighth notes, like you're moving and grooving through it, like there's motion in it to the start of the solo, and it's something that that caught my ear listening to it versus something that I have a habit of is playing a lot of notes early and then burning out early, and then you're like, what do I do from here?
Yeah.
So
That's
it,
a real tough thing, because when you can play a lot of notes, it's hard not to.
oh yeah, and it's like second nature because you practice it so much. It's something you want to do.
Exactly.
But having
And
the restriction of, hey, we're gonna start here, and I'm gonna take you on a journey just with this solo alone, and we're gonna go somewhere with it, versus just playing in one area of the guitar is a big thing that I have to teach my students, and something they have to learn as they get farther down that line and we're jamming together. So that way it's more fun.
the big thing is, as you say, you don't want to burn out before the solo's over.
Mm-hmm.
And so you do want to take them on a journey. And one of the things I did there, which was kind of fun, was pedaling off that. I think it was an A, but I'm pedaling off that A on bada 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 bada. So I'm going back to that same root note every time for that first line.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I thought that was a lot of fun. That's that same amp and the same guitar, but a different pickup.
Oh yeah. So did you use neck pickup on that?
I did.
Ah, there it is. It's got that warmer tone that's so much better for lead lines.
Absolutely. And it has that nice bluesy feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of sounds like a tamer Stevie Ray Vaughan without all the grit.
Yeah, well, he rides that bridge pickup like it's his job. I used to only think you only played bridge pickup. I never understood why you played the neck until you started like writing your own stuff, especially like writing acoustic lines or something that's very more the harmony and having broken into to where it's arpeggiated chords. And then when you're moving the piece around, walking the bass lines, I love a neck pickup for that stuff.
Me too. And that I should say, for anyone that cares, the arpeggio in the verses, it's on the out of phase bridge pickup.
Okay, I'm not sure. I know the out of phase pickup. Is it in between?
Yeah. So it's taking that pickup and the middle pickup out of phase. Mm-hmm. And so that's if on a 5-way switch, if the bridge pickup's all the way forward, the out of phase bridge pickup is the one right after that. Okay,
that makes sense. So you're talking like a 5 switcher.
Yeah.
Versus a 3. I played a traditional 3 switch for a long time. I only got my first 5 switch recently.
And honestly, I mean, sometimes those in between positions are not particularly handy or helpful. Mm-hmm. But in the studio, they're really handy. Live, I don't think it really makes that much difference. But in the studio, where you're wanting like subtle tones, like changes, it can be a handy tool.
I heard it was a great tool to do like double or quad tracking with those. It gives it a completely different feel.
Absolutely, that's real important. Mm-hmm. When you're layering guitars, you need a little something to help it. You don't even though you're stacking the part or doubling the part, you don't want to use the exact same tone on both sides. So because otherwise it'll just become kind of a mishy and just sort of not articulated. So you want to be, if you're gonna, double tracking is not always the right solution. But if you decide to go that route, you want to have a little bit of tone variance, especially if you're painting something left and something right.
Mm-hmm. For sure. That way there's a distinct enough sound, so that way it's different within the ears. It gives it more realistic, a real vibe to it.
Absolutely.
Something that's just stacked on top of each other. I guess one of the things that I'm learning more is it's about occupying space.
Yes,
and
that's
frequency
key.
Space.
Yeah,
more than anything else.
You're 100% correct. I mean, it's it's all about, you have to, when you make choices about what instruments are being used, you have to carve out a place for each one of those instruments to live. And one of the things you have to be careful about is not getting too many instruments in there that all have the same sort of frequency. So when you layer tons of guitars, which is fine, but when you do that, you've got to subtly change the tone on your double tracks. Otherwise, it'll just be fuzzy and just a mess.
Yeah, easily. Or it'll just run over each other and mud it all up.
Yeah, it'd just be awful.
I hear that. So let's round up the rest of this.
1,000 miles isn't far enough away from you. Far enough away. 10,000 miles isn't far enough away. Gotta get away, gotta get away. Like a voodoo doll, you stuck your pin to me. Long and sharp and straight to my heart. Like a kiss with your eyes wide open with nobody there. Leave my dreams and appear somewhere else. 10,000 miles isn't far enough away from you. Far enough away. 10,000 miles isn't far enough away. Gotta get away, gotta get away. 10,000 miles isn't far enough away from you. Far enough away. 10,000 miles isn't far enough away. Gotta get away, gotta get away. You're still on my mind.
All right. So one thing I noticed that I didn't call out back in the solo section is you actually have vocal undertones through the solo too that were the same as carrying through the verse and the chorus.
Yeah, that's right. There's this little ooze in the background. And so yeah, they come in they come in with the solo, and then they stay for the verse 3, and so that's another a little difference. You know, it's a little change. So we're back to that same old verse again, but now we've got a little bit of something different happening in the background.
Again, those breadcrumbs you're leaving for me.
I that is really something I work on a lot. And I think it really helps. And, you know, we hadn't talked about getting your music placed in film and television, but oftentimes if you're trying to get something what's called synchronization placement. So oftentimes if you're trying to get something placed in the film, the more like different slices of sounds they have to work with, the better they are. Now, the better off you are getting a placement. Now, I did not do that on purpose because I think if you try to plan for stuff like that, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. So you should do what feels right for the piece and not try to overthink it. But that being said, having those little breadcrumbs it makes it easier to get a sync placement too, because they're able to find different little pieces or different little things that maybe the first verse doesn't work with the piece they want, but maybe the third verse does, or something like that. So that's helpful to get more cash in your pocket.
No, for sure. And that's something I wouldn't have ever thought of. Dropping truths over here. All right. So this is back into what I called the pre-solo then.
Right.
First time around.
Right.
You're still on my mind. You're still on my mind. You're still on my mind.
All right. So repeating that whole pause bit before the big chorus. One thing that I didn't mention the first time that pre-solo came around is how much that bass leads that line.
Yeah.
As a
you're right.
like groove.
Yeah, it totally changes the feel right there. It really, without that bass line, it would be a very different sound.
And it takes that presence away from the guitar for it to come back in. That whole push-pull layering.
I am so pleased that you noticed all these things and you liked it. I think that's great, because I do all this stuff thinking that the average consumer is gonna be impacted by the music, but they're not gonna necessarily know why. So it's nice to be able to go deeper and talk to someone that appreciates that. It's fun.
Oh, for sure. I'll call it out.
And one other thing I did that was kind of fun. I had a pause there. I did a double. I doubled the end there. What you're calling the pre-solo. So I doubled that. And then the last time I paused. I even had the vocals pause and put a little broom on the toms in between the vocal line, and that
then
that
the
was kind of
abrupt
fun.
stop.
Yeah,
That
so that
was a
kind of
cool
fun.
piece. I'm glad you called that out because I heard it, but I didn't remember to call it out.
Yeah, it entertained me. That's the only reason I did it. It made me smile. I was like, oh, the drummer's gonna love this.
Oh yeah. He's like, I gotta add that mini second of flair. That's what I want.
Yeah. So yeah, we did it just because it just makes me laugh. So I thought, yeah, let's do it.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
10,000 miles isn't far enough away from you. Far enough away. 10,000 miles isn't far enough away. Gotta get away. Gotta get away. 10,000 miles isn't far enough away from you. Far enough away. 10,000 miles isn't far enough away. Gotta get away. Gotta get away. You're still on my mind. You're still on my mind. You're still on my mind.
So did you, for that trailing off piece, did you end up cutting the individual tracks and just changing the mastering level?
No, that was a fade out on the actual mix.
Oh, that was just a fade out on the mix. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And what listen, the thing about that is the reason I chose to end it that way is the whole song is about, basically it's like, you're in a relationship that's bad for you and you should run as far away as you can. But even though that's true, you're still missing that person that is not good for you.
Oh yeah.
So that's why I thought it was appropriate to fade out on the line, "You're still on my mind." And so that's kind of why I thought, that's how we would do it.
No, that's for sure. I didn't even get into the vocal message in itself because I don't know. I'm all guitar, all music.
No problem. I have no problem with that.
don't feel like I'm doing you dirty on your vocal.
No.
I just don't know what I'm talking about. I can't compete.
Well, I mean that's the thing. If we dug into every single nuance, you'd be here for the rest of your life. So I'm with you.
All good.
And
all good.
I've started off as a guitar player. That was my main focus, and then I started singing. And my guitar teacher said, "Hey, you've got a pretty good voice. And, you need to sing more." Okay.
Easy. Done.
Yeah. Yeah. So there we go. So that's what
for sure.
He just said. But whatever he said to do, I trusted him so much. Like, okay, I don't know how this is going to turn out, but you said to try it. We'll try it.
Easy enough, right?
Yeah.
Just falls into place.
Yeah.
I'm over here just crafting it at karaoke shows and then the shower.
Hey, the shower is the best place to practice, man.
Best acoustics.
I am when we're on tour and we're in a hotel, I'm always terrified somebody's gonna come knock on the door and say, "Hey, we're gonna complain downstairs that you're singing." But I sing in the shower. That's how I warm up for a show, is I sing in the shower.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Woo.
I have a very short, about a 15-minute practice session that I go through about an hour and a half before a show. And so usually, just because of how it makes me feel, I usually take a shower right before the show. And so I don't usually take a shower first thing in the morning. I usually wait till it's time to go out, and because it helps my sinuses and stuff. It's a whole long thing. But anyway, yeah. So I do that too. I sing in the shower, and I have a couple different things I do, and some of them are quite loud. So I'm always terrified somebody's going to come in there and go, "Hey, what's going on in here?" But so far, knock on wood, it hasn't happened to me. So there we go.
Hey, if it works for you, I'm not gonna hate on it. Sometimes I don't feel like I want to shower until my workout's done, and that might be at 1 PM, and that might be at 9 o'clock in the morning. So
I heard that
it ranges, but I feel you on the whole shower before you go out bit, because nobody want to smell that BO. I'm sorry.
No. And the thing is, I mean, I just really like, it helps me get my mind and my body focused to kind of shower before I go do the show and do my little routines, my little rituals that I do. I try not to get too locked into anything in case I'm not able to do something, so it doesn't throw me. But that being said, I do like my shower time singing.
Hey, I respect that. I will if I could bring my guitar in there, I would. Don't tempt me.
I think you should try it.
Don't tempt me.
You can get a raincoat for your guitar.
Oh geez, or just get one of those silicone ones. Just make sure none of the hardware gets it.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you may have a $1 million idea here. You can go on the Shark Tank and say, yeah, I've invented a shower outfit for the guitar. Patent pending.
Patent pending, man. So Osterloh Guitar Academy, future product. So you'll need to pay attention, okay?
Yeah, just ignore everything you just heard. Forget everything you've heard.
Forget about it. Don't sell that. Don't bring that to nobody else. Don't worry about it. Awesome. So the next song that I wanted to pick is Blind Man Driving. Now, first off, I gotta ask if this is a pun or not on being blind.
Oh yes.
This is like you just, hey, this is how I feel riding in the car.
No, it's totally a joke. If you have you seen the music video for it?
I thought it was the lyric video that I watched.
There is a lyric video, but there's an actual full music video as well.
Okay, I haven't seen the full music video, but I will.
So it's if I say so myself, it's pretty hilarious. It actually shows me carjacking a lady.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, because blind people are all about being friendly. And so I carjacked this lady because what happens is my ride to take me to the gig says they can't make it. So I carjacked this lady, and I drive this Mercedes. I think it's a Mercedes. I can't remember. Maybe a BMW, but it's a very fancy car. Yeah. I carjack her out of this fancy car and drive all over downtown Macon, Georgia, chased by a cop.
Okay.
And then we finally get to
everything I have done. I felt like such a fool. Every place I have gone just brings me back to you. My horizons, I can just reach out and touch. Oh, when I hold you in my arms, I just can't get enough. A matter of fact.
All right. I believe that's the spot to cut it.
Yep, you got it.
You can tell me if I'm wrong.
that was the end of verse 1.
All right. So I like that little funky groove lick right in the beginning. And again, you with the calls to your verses. That's got to be a Joey signature. Or
yeah, you're right.
Hands down from what I'm seeing. And then creating. So from what I was seeing when I was listening to that original lick, as you had the original theme, you had variation 1, you had original theme again. So small change, go back, and then a different ending the fourth time around.
You're absolutely right.
That was repeated. So that's like, from what I understand, when doing it, it gives it enough of a familiarity. And from what I understand too, like orchestral stuff, if we talk like movie scores, that's how all those are written.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
Different variations on that same theme over and over.
Yeah,
over and over.
And it's you know, it's really cool when you pick up on that theme, even with the themes heavily disguised. It brings out something fresh and new to listen to, but it also brings back that familiarity, like you said. So that's a big part of, you know, the weird part about music is people want something new, but they don't want something so different they can't relate to it. So you have to. That's why a lot of people, when they first listen to jazz or a bebop in particular, like what the hell am I listening to? And you know, it takes a really sophisticated ear to appreciate the kind of harmonies that jazz players are playing sometimes. So you want to anchor your ear somewhere.
Oh, for sure. And then having just a different ending, being a different note. I don't know how intervallic that you write your riffs to, but something that I'm working on myself is getting to know the interval of the note over the chord that's being played and what emotion that's supposed to bring out in you. So when you end it, you know what feeling you're going for, and then you know the note that's going to target, that's going to best express that. Yeah.
So the way I think about that is very similar. I'm not specifically concerned with the exact interval as far as the exact letter name, but I am concerned with the amount of tension that it creates. So, for example, thirds, sixths, fifths, those are octaves. Those are all fairly stable intervals. You start doing fourths, ninths, things like that, 13ths, 11ths, any kind of sharp, sharp 9, flat 9, any kind of thing like that, sharp 11, aug 11s, augmented fifths. There's a lot of tension in there, specifically. So I do really think about that a lot. Now, also sometimes I'll just play something to get lucky.
Yeah, I have definitely searched for the note before.
Yeah,
blindly.
Yeah. So, and I've so I mean, I really feel like, understanding how, basically, and this is a whole thing that I won't go too crazy into, but you have your 4 basic chord types: major, minor, augmented, diminished.
Yep.
Then you have different modifiers. So you have your 7ths and your 13ths and all these different things.
Yep.
And so all that kind of stuff. But so you get really complicated type of chord structures and all this stuff. But I break all those. I think you need to learn all that. But then once you do, I break it down and make it more simple. I break it down into consonant and dissonant.
Yep.
So I have my stable tones that are consonant. Those are the tones that don't have to change. You can play those for a long period of time.
Yep.
They're stable. They're good places to start. They're good places to end. Then you have your dissonant tones, which are not as stable and want to pull you to some kind of resolution up or down.
Oh yeah.
And so with me, I think of the consonant, tones or chords as, places to start and stop. And the dissonant chords as the connection, the highways between those points of interest. So I think a lot about that kind of thing, and how uncomfortable do I want you to feel when I'm singing about something? Am I trying to impart a sense of danger, a sense of dread, a sense of sorrow, a sense of loss, a sense of longing? Am I trying to create a sense of happiness or joy?
Yeah.
What am I trying to do? So I think about that a lot.
And I would say definitely if we're talking about the feel of the chord and the feel of the harmony or the chord progression in general, you're going to play completely different over the 5 chord than you would the 2 or the 4 or the 1, just based off of how much tension that chord's building in itself.
Yeah, it's all about tension and release. Just like you said, earlier in a different way, you were talking about pushing and pulling, dynamically earlier, but now we're talking harmonic. And so I think that's a really important concept to have.
Yeah. Dissonance is a very powerful tool. It
is.
Can be a very dangerous tool because by itself, it kind of sounds like crap. People avoid it.
It does.
Avoid it like the plague. But then you toss it in between 2 good sounding notes and it just does something for you. It's an awesome tool.
Yeah, it really is. And you have to use it correctly, but it's really, and I use a lot of that because a lot of my aesthetic is from the jazz, universe. So I use a lot of transitional devices and a lot of altered chords, a lot of altered dominance, stuff like that. So I use a lot of that kind of stuff. Not because I'm trying to be clever, just because I feel like that's what the song requires, but that's also just naturally kind of where my brain goes.
Well, jazz, naturally, it's got a lot of clash and a lot of chromaticism.
Yeah.
So it would not be a jazz song if there wasn't any bit of that. Even though it might be harsh to the ear, you're still going to end up resolving it.
One of my favorite tricks is bringing in unusual chords, but bringing them in such a way that they don't feel jarring. So we haven't really done that so far in any of the pieces that we've listened to so far. But these are fairly stable sounds. But I'll use a lot of transitional chords in songs that you don't even notice. You don't even notice the crazy chord I just played, the ridiculous weird thing that I just played, because I sandwich it in such a way that it doesn't sound strange. It makes sense to the ear.
I like that you almost get that same feeling with walking the bass line around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you take I did I wrote this small little piece that.
And I'm trying to believe. Couldn't fight if I want to. It just ain't meant to be. Your love's got a grip on me. Falling for you, I feel like a blind man driving. Yeah, can't see where I'm going, baby.
So on your chorus, I think this is the first time we've heard horns in your songs. So
I'm a huge fan of horns.
Mm-hmm. So from listening, like I listened through this 9-song set list that I had, and then whatever YouTube I pulled up, you bring a lot of different instruments into your songs from what I've heard. So I'm like, I don't want to spoil the third song, but I forget what's the organ.
Yeah, so there's a B3 organ here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of in this song we got B3. That's one of my favorite textures. Mm-hmm. And so I use that a good bit, sort of a traditional rock trope. And then I do love horns. I'm a big horn fan, and that was I bring them in, where they're needed, and they're not way out in front. Mm-hmm. And they're basically playing chords. They're playing chords, and that there's an interesting chord progression there that's happening.
I think I might know it, but we'll see if I'm right.
I think hell, I hope I'm right. But I hadn't, with COVID, I hadn't played my set for about 2 years now. So I've been doing a lot of studio work, but I hadn't played we've done one show with my jazz group since COVID, and that's because as a brain tumor survivor, I have to be really careful. Yes. And so we were in a place that was masked, and it was a huge auditorium for a big corporate gig, and we were all by ourselves on a little stage, and the hotel required masks, so I said, oh yeah, I feel comfortable doing that. But anyway, so I think it's like D minor, C major 7, B minor, and I want to say maybe E after that. I think that's right.
Okay.
I can't remember now.
So my chord progression guess was, I guess, more the verse in itself, because it sounded like it was A minor, D minor to E minor. So
you're right. Like, that's the verse.
Bar
you're right.
But wasn't that same structure?
Yeah, that's exactly right. You have exactly right.
Because when I was messing with when I heard your first intro, like that groove lick, I was trying to figure out what it was, because you had a double stop off the first position pentatonic. Right. And then I was like doing it by ear to see what you were doing there. So I'm you're exactly right. I wonder if like the structure is simple enough for me to catch.
Yeah. So you got the verse exactly right, and then the chorus is the one that's got the funkier, chords. But they're walking down. They're coming down, and the chord function for me is always dependent upon the vocal melody or whatever's got the melody. Mm-hmm. So I get the melody first and then harmonize it with whatever makes sense. Yeah.
I always think that I have to build the rhythm guitar first before I do any of the lead work, and I think it's inhibiting my work.
Well, oftentimes because the way I think, oftentimes the rhythm guitar part, the bass line, and the vocal melody come to me all at the same time, typically. But if I have a question in my heart, I'll always go, how many chords would work over this vocal melody? What can I do? Do I need anything different? Is there something with more tension that I hear, or do I need less tension, or what do I need? So you have this real, on the chorus in particular, you start with that D minor. You have this real, very minor, ominous sounding thing going on with the horns. It's a matter of faith, and I'm trying to believe is the lyric there. And then it resolves to that C major 7, and it gives you a moment of rest, and then you switch to another minor chord. So it can be really it can be really interesting to play around with those different sort of ideas and those changes.
No, for sure. And I like a 7th chord because it adds some flavor to it than the traditional triads.
Yeah. And again, that's that jazz That's that jazz mentality coming out in me that I always like expanded, or what we would call compound intervals. So I like that a little bit better. Now, sometimes I don't do that. Sometimes I keep it simple, and that's what it's called. So I try to do what the piece calls for. And I'm a little bit more, I'm doing more showmanship stuff in the live setting. Whereas in the studio, I really try to serve the song. In a live setting, we'll expand and take a longer solo, or we'll do something that's a little more interesting, or we'll add something that's more about the show. But in the studio, I don't do that. I just try to do what's right for the song.
Oh, I got you. Cool. And you know, the live shows, sometimes you got to improvise, and who knows where it goes.
I love to improvise. That's why. Well, I have with my band, being a blind person, I have played in other people's bands. I have played in big orchestras. I've done all that stuff. But it's easier for me, less work for me, if I'm the band leader, and because then they have to follow me. Oh yeah, I don't have to follow them. So I have certain cues. That I give my band with the neck of my guitar, or different things like that tell them, hey, I'm going to take an extra solo here. So we have a lot of room for improvisation within a very rigid structure. So if I decide that I want to riff on something, I might add an extra chorus. I might add an extra chorus, but I've got a signal that goes, hey, I'm getting ready to do X, and so they can watch it and know. And so that works really well. And so I do a lot of improvisation, and partly because if someone wants to come and see us and we're in town for 2 nights or 3 nights, I want them to be able to come back tomorrow and see something a little different. Yeah. That way you get that return. Yeah. So, I mean, I want to say, hey, if you enjoyed the show tonight, come back tomorrow. It won't be the same thing.
Heck yeah. If you liked it so much, they will.
That's
no problem at all.
And so we change the song order. We change the song order every night. We change, and we improvise all the solos. And there's one song that we do a lot. I do a lot of soloing on, and I even have a big vocal thing that I do at the end, this whole vocal solo. And it's different every single night. So you never know what's going to happen.
Heck yeah, that's the best way to do it. Keep them guessing.
Yeah.
Keep them guessing. But I like the fact that, because I'm thinking back when I played with the dad band, they just, we would cut songs out and they expected me to solo to make up time.
Oh,
and I'm like, you can't make me play a 3-minute solo to cover the song you guys just refused to play. Like, no, thank you. But it was always like, we like looked each other in the eyes, and that's how I had to read it. I'm like, oh, okay, here we go.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrible to be forced into like, okay, I've got 10 minutes to kill. Yeah.
And it was consistent too. And then the drummer you'd always tell the drummer was like, I'm done with this, when the beat would slow up. And all you were left with the bass kick. I'm like, all right, done.
Jeez. That's funny.
Man, it cracks me up. But man, in the midst of it, I was so awkward.
Well, I know sometimes my drummer gets frustrated with me, because sometimes I can play really fast if I want to. And so sometimes I'll be feeling a song a little fast, and he's like, oh my God, you're killing me. You're killing me. Why are we playing this song this fast?
Like, I'm sweating enough already. Don't make me sweat more.
Yeah. But some nights I do it just to mess with him. And some nights it's an accident.
That's good fun, though.
I never tell him which one is which.
I would never. Don't admit fault.
Even when I go wrong, it feels so right. Be with you at night. There's 1,000 things to say. I mumble all my words. Oh, I love you more than ever. I hope that's what you heard. Like the river and the sun, burning in the sky. Just no point in wondering, why. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm still gonna try. Oh, but loving you, yeah, it's like a blind man driving.
All right, So that verse part where your vocals kicked up, and were you using delay on that?
Yeah. So what I did was I had delay
Mhm.
very lightly in like turned down real low.
Yeah.
So it would only pop up when I hit the note hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I literally was driving delay with the amount of dB I was pushing through the vocal.
Okay. Well, it almost sounded like it was more reverb than it was delay.
Yeah,
To me, in my
it's just a
ear.
hint. It's just a hint.
Yeah. Otherwise,
subtle.
if you make it too wet, it's just sloppy.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so it's just a hint of delay. It does have a little verb on it as well, but it doesn't come out unless I punch it really hard.
No, it sounded like it was a precursor, like, oh, I'm gonna hit you early, and then we're pulling into the chorus
Right, exactly so.
to hit
Yep.
you even more. And I was listening more to that chord progression since you called that out for the chorus too. It was pretty evident that you start out on a minor.
Yeah. And it's a lot of fun. We have a live. I've got a new ending for this song live.
Mm-hmm.
And it rocks pretty hard, I have to say.
Oh yeah.
I go to a G power chord to an A power chord, and the great thing about power chords, as you know, is there's no third, so you can't tell if it's a major or a minor.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just this hard grinding groove, and I sing all these different versions of the word "blind man driving," different little licks and melodies, and it's all improvised. But I do it a set number of bars, which I think is 8 bars if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, we steal a line from the Beatles, "Baby, You Could Drive My Car." We go beep beep and beep beep, yeah.
Nice.
It's really silly, but it ends on like an expanded compound interval chord with like a big G13 chord. So it's just a lot of fun.
That's
so anyway,
a lot of fun.
But it's only in the live show, so you won't hear it on this record.
Good. That'll make them show up to the shows to hear it.
Come to the show. That's right.
See where the fun is at.
Exactly.
Bring it. Awesome. I love it. I one of the open mics, I mixed 3 songs together because it was just so much fun. It was literally D to G for every song. I'm like, all right, let's see if you catch this one.
Yeah, absolutely. We do medleys sometimes too. So we've got a couple. I think we have 2 medleys, if I remember correctly, and they're pretty fun, and it's a lot of fun to do that.
It is, and it shakes it up.
It does. It gives you something new, and you're like, and then I have a version of one of my favorite singers in the whole world. Some people will mock me for this, but I don't care. One of my favorite singers in the whole world was George Michael, and he's obviously dead now, but he is one of the most incredible, from a technical perspective, one of the most incredible vocalists ever. I mean, just genius. And I do a George Michael song, but I disguise it, and it takes people it takes them to the chorus before they realize what it is, because it sounds so different than the actual song. So I take it and make it my own. So you the first verse, you're like, this song sounds kind of familiar, but I don't know what it is. And then by the time you get the chorus, like, oh wait, that's George Michael.
That's taking it and making your own.
Yeah, and that's what I do I have my rock trio. I have my
Blind man driving.
All right. So leading right into the solo here. Again, that whole variation of here's the theme, here's variation 1, here's the theme, and then I'm going to toss a wah on it.
Exactly. I do love my Mark from Monty wah.
No kidding. I have one too. The Morley.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got that when he put out his first like DVD instructional.
Yeah, I love that wah pedal. I actually have 3 of them because
You
I'm
have
so
3 of them?
I have 3 because I'm terrified for one to break on tour.
Oh my
So
God.
I have backups.
You know, primarily he very rarely uses it,
I
except
know.
for like over solos for like his legato work
Yeah,
and early albums, and that's it.
yeah,
Like the first 2, you heard it more often than not, but it's
yeah. You're
pulled
right.
back a lot. But I love it.
It's a quality product. I'm a Morley endorser, and I have been with them for a long time, since the '90s, and I love their stuff. I've got about 20 or 30 Morley pedals, but I have 3 of those because because it's such a big part of my live sound. I use it not for just wahing, but I will sometimes use it for tone shaping. So I'll sometimes sweep it instead of adjusting a tone knob on my pickup or something. I'll sometimes use it so it almost sounds like I have a different guitar. So I do a lot of that with it, but it's a big part of my set.
No, that's awesome. I think it's funny that I own a piece of equipment that you're using in your live rig.
Oh yeah, in the studio too. But I have one that stays on my studio board, pedal board. I got one that stays on my live board, and then I have a backup that I carry in my toolbox.
You got to. So from what I heard, the musician, you keep double of everything because you don't know what's gonna break.
The guys in the band make fun of me. It's like, man, we don't need that spare. I'm like, yeah, we don't need it because I have it. If I didn't have it, we'd need it.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And so we showed up to a gig, that corporate gig I was telling you about. We showed up to the gig, like, man, we don't need this extra bass amp. I'm like, well, and then we plugged it in, and my bass amp blew. So I was like, aha, who's laughing now? That's why I have a spare.
Yes, sir. You mock me.
Well, I mean, my whole life has been about like overcoming adversity, and I like plan A, B, C, and D because I've had to have a bunch of different surgeries and all kind of stuff like that. And so my whole life has been about how do I cope with the limitations I have. So I don't like limitations, and I like to be prepared because things will go wrong if you give them a chance. And so, yeah, I have spares, man.
Oh yeah, that's completely understood. Completely expected. So I liked what you did with returning back. Like when you talked about the first solo in 10,000 miles, you were riding A. It sounded like you were doing the same thing after we hit the climax point.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's true. There was that same idea. Yeah.
Because you were using that to resolve off, giving them that repeated familiarity leading back into the song in itself.
Yeah, and you know, this is one of these few solos that is about 70% the same in the live show. Normally I improvise all the solos, but this one works so well, and it's tasty, and there's a lot of, you know, there's that long chord progression in the chorus, that I just thought, you know, I keep it, and also I had to relearn it. Normally after I play a solo in the studio, I forget it, and the next time I just do something different, but I had to relearn it for the video. So that when I was playing it, that they could
the thing to say, I mumble all my words. I love you more than ever. I hope that's what you heard. Like the river in the sun, burning in the sky. No point in wondering, no point in wondering why. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm still gonna try. Loving you, I feel, oh, like a blind man falling. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, is this love for real? Don't make me take the wheel, baby. Is this love for real?
All right, so this will be the vocal call out that I get. All your little idiosyncrasies that you talked about adding on to the end of the songs that making it all different. I'm catching all those little bits that you're doing those vocal embellishments that are changing in the verses and the choruses.
Yes, absolutely.
As those little, again, the breadcrumbs that are coming in later in the song, the longer you listen to, the more that it's different.
And you know, I love that when other artists do it. It makes it so nice that you can keep listening and it still stays fresh. And you know, that's the only way that your art's going to last and hopefully outlast you and be of relevance, is that people still enjoy it, and the people that have heard it a million times still want to hear it that millionth and one, you know, million and one. So I do love doing that, and I just, you know, I kind of go with what I feel, and usually that doesn't lead me astray. Every once in a while, I'm like, that didn't work, but normally, you know, it's normally I'm riding a wave of inspiration, and I'm just kind of taking it where it goes. So I mix up very careful deliberation with improvisation, and I've been doing it long enough that I can usually 9 times out of 10 everything I do is a first take. I'm just I burn it and I'm done. And you know, sometimes that's not true, but most of the time it is. And there's a freshness and a vibe and an energy that comes with that. Now sometimes it's not possible. Sometimes it requires a little more thought. Or when you get in the studio, it's like, oh, you know, this thing I thought would work doesn't actually work. I thought it would, but it doesn't. And you have to drop.
Can't see where this is going. No. Like Ray Charles driving.
And it's the song that feels like it never ends.
You know, honestly, it's a little long. We did a radio edit that fades out pretty quick, but I left that for the album version.
Oh,
and
heck yeah.
And we just decided, originally my intention was to fade out, but every time I started to, I was like, well, that's kind of neat. Well, that's kind of neat. Well, that's kind of neat. And I looked at, we'll just leave it.
You know, this solo reminds me a lot of how I write mine, which is a fury and a little bit of all over the place, but a lot of fun at the same time.
Yeah.
And just riff on an idea.
This solo was not about melodic content.
Mm-hmm.
It was about attitude. And that's all I really wanted from it. I could have retaken that and played something better possibly, but I thought attitude wise, it was everything I wanted. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was more important to communicate that attitude than it was to, have something that was really melodically exciting.
Mm-hmm. And you were right. The horns added some sass as almost the call to the guitar too.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, you probably can't understand what I'm saying, but I'm saying this is one of the things I do live when I'm going to take something couple. So I have an 8-piece band, like rock band that I do sometimes with a full horn section, but there are so few places that can afford to pay us that we don't, or even fit us, that we don't play that very often. So outdoor festivals, places like that, but anyway, a lot of times what I'll say when I want to keep the horns going on whatever they're playing right now is I'll say more funky horns. That's my cue that I want to keep it going. Yeah. And I'll sing it. I'll say more funky horn, more funky horn, more funky. I'll just do that. And that's just my cue that I want to keep it going.
Yeah. Nice. Well, I support the horns. I wasn't the biggest lover of them, but you're swaying me.
Well, I mean, they used in their correct place, they can be really great.
Mm-hmm. And I just don't think I know how to use them yet. So
you'll get
this
there.
Is me getting a taste.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. Love that one. You think my taste is picking out some good ones or what?
Oh yeah, man, this is great. Well, I'm thrilled. Listen, I'm thrilled when anyone likes any of them. So, whatever is your favorite is fine with me. But these are some of my favorites, and you're pointing out some really interesting things that I appreciate is being picked up on. So that's good.
No, that it is. So the last one that I picked out was Mr. Mooney.
Yes. Okay.
Is there a Mr. Mooney?
So interesting story about this. Once again, you've picked a long song that I think it's 6 minutes and 42 seconds or something like that.
Again.
And I never thought it'd be played on radio, but it has been played on radio quite a bit, which is exciting for me. So the thing about this song was it is one of my earliest compositions. It's actually the second song I ever played for anybody.
No kidding.
And I wrote this when I was, I think, around 20 years old. And the thing about it is, we played this at our first live gig. The first time I ever played live with my first little band was at an art studio, and we didn't get paid or anything. We were just happy to be playing.
Yeah. And
we played. That was the only original song we had in the set. And so we put that original song on the set, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, and this is a long time ago, but if I'm not mistaken, I think it was the last song we played. But anyway, regardless of that, all the girls in the audience started crying. Really? And, these were all teenagers, 20, 18, 19, 20. And I said, oh man, we got something. We got something. Because all the girls started crying. I was like, man, I knew I had something. So the story behind this song, and a lot of people actually think that, it's about a car wreck. And a lot of people ask my wife very quietly, they'll come up to her and say, is that how he lost his eyesight? Was it a car crash or something? So I'm happy to say that's not true.
Okay.
I'm happy to say the characters are all fictitious. I have no idea. I honestly have no idea how I came up with the name Mr. Mooney. I don't know. It's nobody I've ever heard of. It's nobody that I know. It's just all of a sudden I picked up the guitar and that line just fell out of my mouth, and that was it. And And so the song, this was back in the 90s, and there was 100-car pileup in LA, or if it wasn't LA, it was California. I think it was LA. And I was listening to National Public Radio. I was listening to the news on National Public Radio, and because I'm a big public radio fan. And so I was listening to the news, and there was this 100-car pileup, and a lot of people had died at that time. They had started putting driver's side airbags in cars, but they had not started putting passenger side airbags in cars. Oof. And so the guy that was on the radio being interviewed said, well, would people whose lives been saved if the government required driver's side and passenger side airbags? And the guy said, absolutely, more lives would be saved. He said, but more importantly, how would you feel if you and your loved one were in the car and you lived because you had an airbag and your loved one died? And that just like took me to this whole place of imagining what that would be like. And so that's the song. That's the whole story of the song. It's a totally fictitious story, but it's a song of a guy and a girl who, in my mind, have been dating for a year or two. They're engaged. They're going to be married, and they go out one night and get in a car wreck, and she dies, and he lives. And so the whole song is him trying to justify his own life to himself, like survivor's guilt. Why did I live? And also trying to explain to her father, who's Mr. Mooney, I wish I'd died instead of her, but that's not what happened, and I'm really sorry. I'm sorry I'm sorry your child is gone, and I'm still here. So that's the story of the song. And it's fictitious, but it's based on a real consequence and a real idea of not having it. So anyway, that's that whole story.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing.
It's heavy.
Yeah, and it doesn't sound like it.
Yeah.
When I hear it, at least the parts that I listen to, it doesn't sound super heavy.
Yeah, you have to, if you're not listening to the lyrics, you're not gonna, if you don't pay attention, the story is not, it's not uber obvious. But you can definitely, you can definitely sort of piece the story together. I'm telling you more of the story than is related in the song, because I have imagined the full nuance of what happened to these characters. Yeah. So I'm not giving you, the song doesn't give you quite as much detail, but anyway, that's the idea.
I guess it puts you in an emotional space.
Yeah.
To convey even better what the purpose of this song is, or the message of the song.
And I have to say, I've had people come up to me and said, "Oh my God, you're the guy that wrote that song, Mr. Mooney." I was like, "Yeah," and they're like, "Yeah, I had to pull my car over to the side of the road and cry, and then start driving again." I was like, "Well, that's as it should be."
That's how you conveyed an excellent message.
Yeah, that's what that to me has been, as far as like the message sent, the message received. This song, especially with the ladies, this song has done everything it was supposed to do. So, while I'm not happy that I made somebody cry per se, I am happy that I had an emotional impact and got to them. That's exciting for an artist.
Well, that just means that you were excellent at passing your message through our way of communicating.
Yeah, that's exciting.
All right. Well, let's get into it. So
all right,
be warned, your ears will make your eyes water. Beware.
Mr. Mooney, talk to me. I just want to say I'm sorry. But may she always rest in peace. I'd give my life if I could ease your pain. I know my sorrow doesn't help you heal. I know I'm the one you blame. It's just that car came so fast. The headlights were in my eyes before I could even scream. And I tried to hold her back, tried to keep her here with me, and as his cast will attest, all I got was my arm broken in half. I just want.
All right, before it goes, before it gets loud up in here. One thing I noticed, I was, again, just like that solo bit, I brought my guitar out. I'm like, let me see if I can figure out this chord progression. So you're gonna have to correct me if I mess this up.
All right, all right.
So I had G major,
Yep.
C major.
Yeah.
Probably
So
wrong.
it's G to D.
It's G to D. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then I
It's
had
moving right.
then I had A minor, E minor.
Yeah. So you've got that right. So it's G to D, and I'm playing this. I'm playing a little pull out there with the D.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it doesn't sound like a full D chord there. That the D is the pull off.
Mm-hmm.
So that little line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's coming off the D chord. That's why the D chord's not super obvious. So G to D, and then it goes C, and I walk it down to the A minor and to the E minor.
Oh,
yeah.
Got it.
So there's a transitional note there. So you're right that there was a C there. It's just that D came before it, but it doesn't really sound like a D because I'm playing flourishes around it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm so used to embellishing the C note off of like the C open chord. That's where it took me when I heard it. I'm like,
and
I've done this before,
in the right place.
but I thought
yeah,
it was
you're in the
that.
right place. Yeah, you're in the right place.
No, exactly. And then you're right. That walking bass line definitely adds some vibe and just that little bit of flair. I try to show my students, I'm like, with these hammer-ons and pull-offs on your open chords, there's no reason why they should be playing dull and dumb.
Absolutely.
Not anymore.
I mean, these are the first. These are just super basic. And I'm stacking the guitar parts, so I'm doubling the acoustic line. Mm-hmm. And now this is when I was like 20 years old, 19 years old. I can't remember exactly, but yeah. So you'll notice that there's basically acoustic guitar, tambourine, and vocal on this first part. And there is a bit, this is off the first album. So and then I re-released it later because it was a crowd favorite, and I wanted to put it out there again. But at any rate, it does have a little now listening to it now. There's a little too much reverb on the vocals, but it was the 90s.
It's acceptable then,
Yeah, there's a little too much reverb on the vocals. I still like the reverb on the tambourine though. I think that sounds good. I would dial back the reverb probably by about 15% now. But as I say, this is a young 20-year-old, making the first record kind of thing. But yeah, I do like this song a lot. I mean, it's a ballad. I mean, it's my sort of ballad tune that I did. And I always tell people that simplicity is beautiful in the hands of a master. I certainly was not a master musician at this stage of my life, but I do think that there are simple motifs that can still be used in innovative ways, and everything doesn't have to be like tons of flash and dash to be poignant. And of course, I'm giving my guitar parts here are just lending support to the vocal. The vocal is what I want you to listen to in this particular instance. So keeping things simple around it makes a lot of sense. And it's a long song, and to keep it from being crazy boring, you'll see there's some devices I pull out to help with that.
It's that insertion of, hey, there was the tambourine that came in with the verse.
Yeah.
And then there'll be more additive stuff, as I remember hearing the first time
That's
through,
right.
to just keep it fresh, because that guitar line, even though it's very very interesting and it's got a lot of flair to it and whatnot, anything repeated over a long period of time gets dull and boring.
Yeah, you're talking like almost 7-minute song. So
yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure I was excellent at picking every 7-minute song. So that's just me. I know when there's a good one.
That's great. I love it.
That's all right. So I can definitely tell. Was there anything vocally that you did with your voice? Was there more rasp in it? Was it that?
Yes,
I forget what term you used in the first
song. Vocal fry.
The fry, so, yeah, that's what you were talking about.
So when these rock singers get out there and scream their heads off, if they want to do it the next night, and there's two ways of doing that. there's literally screaming and shredding your vocal cords, which is a bad idea. Or there's actually there's a way to release the tension in your throat so that you're not bearing down. And when you release it, it kind of sounds like you're raspy or screaming, when in fact you're really not. So it's hard to explain without going into an hour and a half long discussion. But it's the vocal fry technique is doesn't damage you, and it's something that allows you to sing that way night after night after night without shredding your cords. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of that going on. That was an early technique that I adopted early on, before I knew actually what I was doing. But I was doing it because I figured out how to do it. Later, I got even more control over it. But when I was like, hey, I can get this sort of raspy sound that I kind of wanted. So it sounds like I smoked some Marlboros, but I don't.
Nice. I mean, hey, that's all right. Maybe I just need a nasal cold, and then I just need to write a blues album within that span of having a nasal cold. So it sounds like a smoke too.
There's I've never, because I've got so many health problems. Like I don't drink or smoke because I got enough problems. But there's an interesting, I don't know how true this is, but there was a story going around for a while that Hall & Oates liked to record when they had colds, because really? they thought it mellowed their voices out better, gave them better tone. Now that was going around. A lot of musicians were saying that, and I think it was maybe printed in some magazine. Now, whether or not that's true, I don't know. But there are people that have done stuff like that. I try to be in control of my body in every way imaginable, so that I don't have good days and bad days or that kind of thing. I have good days and great days. So I like to have, I try to learn the technique so I can do whatever I need to do when I need to do it. But, that being said, everybody's body and everybody's instrument will be different, and you'll be able to do things I can't do, and I'll be able to do things you can't do, or at least can't do easily, naturally without a lot of effort. So everybody should love the voice they have and the playing they have, and just try to perfect it as much as they can, be the best version of them they can be. Oh yeah. Because we all can get different cool tones.
And that's what provides the variety, the individuality.
Yeah, we need that variety. Yeah.
And it would suck to be dependent on anything for your sound.
Well, that's I had a really interesting thing that happened. I was playing with the B-52s, and we were doing a concert, and the drummer just freaked out because he didn't have a pair of golf gloves that he said he needed to play. And and I think apparently it was to keep his sticks from falling out of his hand or something like that, if he sweat or something like that. And that's all fine and well, but man, I would hate to be. He had a real temper tantrum.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, wow. And so they had to send some runner out to go find these golf gloves. But anyway, I have two comments to that. No disrespect to B-52s, because I'm a big fan. And the drums sound great, and the guy's a great player and all this stuff. But I have two comments. First, if it's that important to you, bring extra. Or B, don't become reliant in the first place.
Yeah.
Like I work really hard. Yeah, I work really hard not to get trapped into so many rituals and things, or like I have to have this or I can't perform. I have to have even my wah pedal. That's kind of one of my weaknesses. Like I use it a lot, so that's why I have spares. But even if I didn't have it, I'd still go on and do the best show I could do. Would it be 100%? It might be 85% instead of 100, but it'd still be valuable. So, I just tell people to do that. But there's something that I like to talk about when I do inspirational talks and stuff like that. And I'll say this to people, and it'll freak them out, because I'll say, I don't believe in equality. And everybody's like, oh my God, what do you mean? I was like, equality is an illusion, because we are not all equal. You can do things I can't do. I can do things you can't do. You can see, I can't. You may be short, I may be tall. We're not all equal. And that is actually a gift, not a curse. It's exciting that there's so much variety in people and who we are and how we express ourselves. What I believe in is equity. I believe in the idea that we all want the same opportunities.
Yep.
So I believe in the idea of equity. I do not believe in the idea of equality, because if we were all equal, it'd be boring.
It would be. And we would all produce the same stuff, and nothing would be individual.
I mean, why would you? I mean, who would? Yeah, it would just be. It would be just a beige. You know.
Yeah, it would be blank.
So anyway, I didn't mean to go down that rabbit hole on you, but anyway.
No, it's all good. But I completely agree. There is an equality to opportunity, but not an equality of outcome, and that's something I always struggle with when people are like, "It's not the same. We're not treated the same." It's like, no.
Yeah.
You have the same opportunity as everybody else.
Everybody wants the same. Everybody wants the same chance to make it, and to have the life they want. And look, I serve on lots of diversity. There's a committees in all different professional committees I'm part of. Like they call it diversity and inclusion and all these different things. And I'm all for that. I think that's wonderful. Whether you're a man or a woman, you're straight or you're gay. I mean, all that stuff is great. And we should always represent the people should be represented as to who they are. And my position on that is, as long as you're not hurting anybody else, I don't care what you do. Doesn't matter to me. And I want you to have all the freedoms and rights that everybody else should have. So, but the idea that we're all the exact same is what equality actually means. If you think about it from an actual definition, equality is to say that everything is perfectly in balance.
I just wanna scream. Such a loss, not deserved to be. I just wanna scream. I just wanna scream. Such a loss, not deserved.
So you carry that scream that long every time?
Yes.
Every time.
Every time.
Well, props to you, because there's no way I'm doing that.
I was able. I had good breath control even when I was so young, but and I can do it longer now. But I mean, it's kind of pointless. But I do have a few moments in the show where I do a few vocal gymnastics like that, where I hold it out for a really long time or do something interesting. But that's more the live show. But I felt like it needed that in the recording. I felt like it. I felt like I didn't want it to cut off too soon. I wanted it to linger.
Yeah, well, it does leave you hanging on it, and like scream carrying, like that's that instance and what you're portraying.
Mr. Mooney, your life will never be the same. I just want to say I understand your pain, 'cause I walk through my hell alone, no one there to comfort me, and at night I try to avoid sleep, for with sleep comes dreams, and in these dreams I see it all again, hear her voice and hold her hand, until my tortured soul wakes me with a shriek. Then with a cry, I stagger to my feet, hold my head and began to weep for long gone memories. I just wanna scream. I just wanna scream. Such a loss, it's not deserved to be. I just wanna scream.
Nice. So I heard that organ finally come up.
Yeah.
And that's where I was like, I knew it was coming. I knew the second time around it was coming. Was it just was it just playing the root note around, or was it actually playing the full chord behind?
So at first it was just single note.
Mm-hmm.
And then it began to add more notes in the chords as we progressed.
Okay.
And also at the same time, I added a conga part. So now you've got acoustic guitar, conga, tambourine still on 2 and 4, and then you've got the organ kind of coming in underneath that. And as we build through the verse, the organ adds more notes to the chords that are being played.
Okay. I was gonna say
it gets bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm. As it's stacking, it's a fuller and fuller sound. I didn't know it was a congo. I thought it was just a bongo. That's what I wrote down. I'm like, is that a
close
bongo
enough?
Percussion?
They roughly sound the same, especially tuned real high the way those are. That's close enough. I mean, they roughly sound the same. The only real difference, the only reason really you can tell is a conga is because of the hand slap. On the bongo, that sounds a little bit different, but they're played very similarly. You know, with a real percussion. So the drummer I was using at the time didn't play what we call auxiliary percussion. So I had to get a different guy, and his name is Moo Moo. that's the name he goes by, Moo Moo.
Wow.
And so everybody calls him Moo Moo. So I got Moo Moo to come in. He's about 6'5", black guy that wears a Panama hat.
Nice.
And he's just a funky, cool dude, man. He's just a cool guy. And so he's played with me on and off for a million years. So he was amazing. I brought him in, and he also did he did all the aux percussion, tambourine, all that stuff. So it was a lot of fun. And then as the verse ends, to take you into the chorus, which is kind of the big reveal, it gets pretty heavy compared to the rest of the song. There's this nice little piano line that walks you up into the chorus this time. In the first verse, I didn't really feel like I had that kind of leeway because I hadn't introduced the keyboards yet.
Yeah.
So it would have been nice to walk it into the chorus, but there just wasn't really a good way to do that without ruining the effect of stuff later on.
No, that's understood, because you can't tell us it all at once.
Exactly.
And especially for how our brains work, we're not going to catch everything.
Yeah, and again, this is a long ass song, so
you have plenty of time to do it. We're only 4 minutes 10 seconds at this moment.
Right, and I don't have to give it all away in the first 30 seconds. So
no, not at all. You be a teenage girl playing coy with with the boy.
Lord, I've had that experience. Yeah, I've had that experience. So yes, I'm definitely.
First time we met, and at night I cried to the gods of me. Why was it her instead of me? My heart's so heavy I think it'll break. Oh, God in heaven, remove this weight from me. And every day I scream and cry.
That powerful transition right there, that using that previous headlong scream and then letting that chorus come in. Ooh, that's heavy. I see why the women were crying.
Yeah. I mean, it's it's really, it had to be there. What's funny is I stacked the last word alive into the chorus there, and it was my last open track. This was on analog tape, so this was my last open track. And I only had one track open. I really wanted to stack it twice, but I couldn't. So I stacked it just once. Such a loss, not deserved to be.
Nice. Very, very somber solo, but very like melodic, hits the same theme, hits you right where it hurts when you have it. And just it's singing that sad sorrow, like rocking in a cradle almost. Like,
yeah, that's a really wonderful way to put that. I hadn't thought about that, but that makes sense. That's a good way to say it.
mm-hmm. I mean, it puts me in that feeling. It really pulls on those heart chords, especially the way that you had it. It was nice that you had some like arpeggiatic flair with some of those lead lines too.
Yeah.
Like, all right.
Yeah. You want to have a little interest, but the focus for this piece was much more on melody this time. There was it was more about that, and you know, there was some harmony. You know, there were some of the lines were doubled, so they had harmony parts and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, it was really on the melody. For the most part, was where that focus was. And as I've gotten older, you know, this is a long time ago, but as I've gotten older, especially when I'm working for other people, I'm sort of like the paintbrush for their canvas, as it were. I like to play things like, if it's not my record, then if I work with a lot of people that are strictly singers, and produce a lot of records for people that are singers. I do a lot of bands too, but I do a lot of stuff with just singers, you know, that don't play an instrument or play enough to help write, but not enough to play in the studio. And you know, when I'm working for them, I really kind of feel like if you notice my guitar playing and say, wow, that's a great guitar part, and you're not listening to them, then I've done something wrong. So I try to stay in the background and just support them. But in every song, I'll have what I call a watermark, which is I'll have one spot where I play something really fancy, so that you know that I can play more if I want to.
Oh yeah, it's that tease. Tease, man.
Going back to being coy. So yeah, it's like, yeah. So I like to leave those little watermarks in the stuff that I produce for other people. So like, you'll hear it literally. It'll be like maybe one measure. You'll hear something go, oh, okay, yeah, right. Yeah. That's so. But mostly, you know, you focus on the melody. And I had that inclination even back when I was so young. I wanted to keep it, you know, about what did the song need, you know. And again, live, it's a little bit of a different experience. Live, it's more about having fun and being in the moment and sharing the energy with the crowd and stuff like that. But in the studio, I try to be a little more surgical.
Understood. And what serves the purpose.
Yeah.
So, hey, that is end of segment 2. Holy crap, we're here. Thank you so much for sticking with me and walking through all those songs, even though there were 7-minute songs. I did not regret it. And I support it. Long form podcast. Let's go.
Yes.
All right.
I appreciate being with you.
No, that's awesome. So this segment will be a little bit shorter depending on how much we want to talk.
Okay.
That'll be the key with this one. So for segment 3 is my personal students' questions. I thought that this was a big benefit to them, and it's kind of something that I sold them. I'm like, you have the opportunity here to ask someone who's professional, who's making a living doing this and performing. What do you want to know from somebody?
I think that's so cool. I love that idea.
And if they weren't super excited about it, I'm like, I don't know how else I'm going to get you excited. I'm being honest.
That is so cool. I'm looking forward to it.
So I'll start it off. I'll pick the student's name, and then I'll go through the list of what they have, and we'll just answer them as best as we can.
Sounds good.
A lot of this stuff we have touched in the first segment, which is cool. And we'll just reiterate on some of those things that we've already covered.
Perfect.
So my student Steve says, in the YouTube video, Don't Blink, you stated you never thought about being a professional or in the music business as a young adult. What prompted you to pursue a professional career in music?
Hey, that's a great question, Steve. I really appreciate that. I appreciate you watching Don't Blink. That's great. Yeah. So my focus was just on survival at that point. I was really sick as a child. And so, you know, I was just trying to get through school. And I should mention to your students that I didn't ever go to a blind school or a special school for the blind. I just went to a regular school with everybody else and just sort of toughed it out. And I did have to do some things differently, but I you know, I didn't do that. Now, would I have gone to a blind school if I needed to? Sure, I would have. But I didn't need to. We didn't feel, and my parents felt like it was very important for me to learn that, you know, the world is basically sighted, and I'm going to have to come to terms with that.
Yeah.
And so you know, we always did what was needed, but my parents did not want me to live in a separate reality. But yes, in Don't Blink, I did mention that. And what inspired me to get in the music business fully was twofold. The first one was I was really sick when I was about 13 years old, and I became obsessed with recording equipment. And so that's what got me started in the recording thing. And then the recording process led to that job I mentioned earlier at the planetarium, and these other people that had garage bands wanted me to record them. And then when I heard that first garage band with that original song, I realized, man, music is the story. Music is the way I want to show my story, and it's the vehicle through which I'm going to do that. And so I was just really excited by original music and hearing somebody besides a star, you know, write this original music. And I thought, hey, I could do that. So that's what happened.
Yeah, excellent. So his second question, a live day. So that's something we haven't covered, but I did some looking into it, what it was.
Yeah.
So a live day, for the people watching, is your music celebration of the surgery.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, right?
Yeah. So basically, my parents, essentially what happened was, when I was about 18 months old, basically, they realized that I had a brain tumor. And so they said, you know, look, we're going to have to do surgery to get this out. And if we don't do the surgery, your son's going to die for sure. If we do the surgery, there's a good chance he'll still die. Or if he lives, he won't walk or talk. And you just need to be prepared for that. And as has certainly been demonstrated today, I can talk a lot. So, and I also walk as well. So my parents, instead of, it was really, I mean, I was in the ICU for like 45 days after the surgery. It was pretty tough. And even when I got home, like my mother had to limit the amount of water I could drink to force my kidneys to work. It was a real ordeal.
Wow.
So I was like thirsty and like begging my mom for water. And that broke her heart, but she couldn't give it to me. I had to have a measured amount of water every day, but my kidneys weren't great. So, you know, it was tough. But there's a lot of things like that. I almost died a number of times, and it was a long story. But anyway, they came up with the idea, a beautiful idea, of keeping me focused on the positive rather than the negative. So they kept me focused on the affirmational as opposed to the traumatic. So instead of being scared every September the 29th and having bad memories of almost dying and having to be packed in ice and all this crazy stuff that I went through, instead of the day I almost died, it became the day that you lived. So that's how a live day came about. And so we celebrated it kind of like a second birthday. You know, a few family, a few friends, little dinner, you know, just a celebration. And then as I got older, we just kept doing it. I was used to it. I was like, well, heck, I'm not going to give this up.
No, it's not. It's easy.
I get a dinner. I get a dinner with my folks, and, you know, so, and I always had family and friends. I was like, hey, let's come celebrate a dive day. And I believe you should celebrate everything you can. I think you should take every moment to celebrate in life, because there are going to be times you can't celebrate. So anyway, then in 2017, I started thinking, and I said, you know, a live day is such a positive affirmational thing for me. I bet it would be a positive thing for other people. So we're going to hold a free, family-friendly music concert in downtown Macon. Nice. We're gonna just take time to celebrate the joy of life, the joy of living, the joy of music. We're gonna connect as a community and as neighbors, and we're just gonna get together and just have a fun day. So that's how we started it. And the mayor actually proclaimed September 29th, Joey Stuckey, a live day in Macon, Georgia. Nice. And my sweet wife gets every year, even through COVID, we've continued to celebrate a live day. We just do it on Facebook instead of in person right now. So we did it 2017, 2018. We did it 2019. I was too sick to do it because I had shoulder surgery. And the band was on tour, and I just didn't have time to put it together. It costs a pretty penny to put it together and keep it free. And it takes a lot of work. And so I just couldn't do it that year. But 2020, 2021, 2022, we've done it all virtually. So that's what it's all about. It's just about, and I invite the artists to participate who are sweet, beautiful, wonderful, amazing people, talented people who really understand the whole point that we're trying to give back and say, hey, this is my story, but we're here to celebrate your triumphs and the triumphs that we all have shared together as a community. And we're here to think about the good things, because there'll be plenty of time to think about the bad things.
Always. We dwell on those way too much.
Yeah, we do. And it's, it's human nature. It's hard not to do that. But so that's what a live day is all about. And I've had such a wonderful time. And so my wife reaches out every year and gets these messages from friends and families and even some famous people that I don't know. And she's like, hey, would you like to send Joey a nice message? And so I've met and become acquainted with people that I would never have gotten to know if it wasn't for a live day. So Eliza Schlesinger, who's a fantastic comedian, I'm a huge fan of hers. My wife reached out to her and she did me a sweet video message.
Nice.
And she's an incredible comic. If you hadn't listened to her stuff, it's really good. And then another person, Katie Manning, who is most famous for her role in Doctor Who, one of my favorite TV shows.
Oh, okay.
And so she sent me a beautiful message. She was one of the companions of one of the doctors when I was growing up. So all kind of cool people like that. And then of course, lots of friends and lots of people I've worked with. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I saw them all over YouTube. I was going through each one's watching the messages, just trying to understand what it was.
Yeah. I mean, and several of my good friends, like Ricky Kaj, who's an Indian musician in India. And he's just won I think his second or third Grammy this year. And he sends me some well wish. He's just a sweet, wonderful person that I've gotten to know over the years. And Sir Alan Parsons, who's one of my heroes and a mentor of mine. I have to say this because I am very proud of this. Full disclaimer, I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying that I'm going to take it.
All right.
Alan says, and it's on video, so I can prove it. I'm not making this up. He produced the Dark Side of the Moon album, the Pink Floyd. He worked with the Beatles. Of course, he did the Alan Parsons Project and many other amazing things. But he says, for those who don't know, Joey Stuckey has the best ears in the music business. And so I'm not claiming it's true, but I'm not going to argue with Sir Alan Parsons.
Who are you to deny a compliment?
That's what I'm saying. That's right. So anyway, the point is that if you're really interested, there's probably about 40 messages on YouTube that you can go and watch. And there's actually, I had a TV show called Behind the Shadow, and we actually feature some of the different bands that played on a live day. You can search Behind the Shadow, Joey Stuckey, a live day, and you can watch some of the bands perform. It's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're interested, go check that out. It's on his YouTube page. So his question about a live day was that, does it still continue? I think you've answered that. And then
yeah,
how
absolutely.
Did it go in 2018?
Yeah, so 2018 was good too, and we had a good one. The first live day concert, we had about 500 people. This 2018 we had around 1,500 people, so it grew a lot. And then of course 2019 I was too sick to do it, but then 2020 COVID hit. So we've had about you're testing my memory here, but I think we had about 300 people tune in on Facebook for a live day. That's not bad. And so we have done different things. The 2020, am I saying this right? Yeah, the 2020 a live day, I had 10 different bands perform virtually, and I tied them all together and broadcast them on Facebook Live. That had a bunch of people. That was probably 600 people tuned in for that. But in 2021, I just did me and a buddy of mine. So I just acoustic guitar, vocal, and percussion. And this year, 2022, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do my buddy's going to come play bass with us. So we'll have guitar, vocal, bass, and percussion. So that will be happening on September. Well, actually, the actual festival this year will be on October 1st.
Okay.
Just because it's a weekend. So September 29th is on a Thursday, I think, this year. Yeah, I think that's right. So, or maybe it's a Wednesday. I can't remember. But anyway, it's on a weeknight. I was like, let's do it on a Saturday in the middle of the afternoon where people can tune in. But I will be on the 29th. I will be posting all the live day messages. So if you want to watch my Facebook for that, you can see that up.
Awesome. Cool. Question number 3 from Steve. Your band has opened for bands from others various genres, classic rock, country, radio rock. How do the audiences respond to your music, and who is your favorite musician to open up for?
That's a good question. So my goal, well, first of all, anytime an artist that's more established than I am wants me to participate and open for them, it's always a thrill and an honor and a privilege. That being said, when we go out on stage, my goal is to steal their audience and to make their audience my audience. And that doesn't mean that I'm taking fans away from them. I'm just adding fans to me. So we go out with that goal in mind, that we want to do so great. Like, we came here to see so-and-so, but that band was pretty good. I think we'll buy their record, that kind of thing. So it's a lot of fun. The audience is always, I have never had, I'm going to knock on wood here again. I have never had a audience that did not respond well to us. I've had some, like with the corporate gigs, where they're sort of ambivalent. Like they enjoyed it, but they, the music was secondary. But we 9 times out of 10, we convert a lot of fans to our way of thinking, which means buying a t-shirt.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm going to pause you one more time because I got to trade batteries one more time.
All right, buddy.
Cool. So you talked about how humble you were to open up for somebody who is more established than you, and that basically the goal as the newer musician is to convert their fans to be your fans as well. Not necessarily steal them, but expose them and then have them come along for the ride, come see a show, and get to know you on a better level.
And that's why it's really important to choose who you open up for carefully. It wouldn't make sense for us to open up for a death metal band, right? We would have a hard time converting those fans. So you have to make sure they're at least tangentially related to what you're doing. But like, for example, I played with Trisha Yearwood, and I'm not a country artist by any stretch. But in that particular instance, this is the Georgia Music Hall of Fame Awards, and we were broadcast to about 3 million people over television, and there was about 3,000 people in the audience. And my job that night was to play the music of an inductee that was being entered to the Hall of Fame posthumously. So that person had passed away.
Okay.
So that night I was there to represent somebody else's music, but we did my song, Mr. Mooney. We did a little piece of that at the beginning and changed the name to Little Jimmy, Little Jimmy was the guy being inducted, Little Jimmy Dempsey, who's a very famous Nashville studio musician who has played on hundreds of hit records. And I was just honored they thought I was good enough on guitar to represent that guy. I was like,
mad respect. All right.
Yeah, it was great. So we played Mr. Mooney. We changed the lyrics a little bit and just said, I don't remember exactly what they were, but it was something like, we missed your guitar playing was the point. And then from that, we went into 3 of his hit songs that he played, instrumental versions of some of the hit songs he was on. And then we ended it with the Joey Stuckey ending, which is this big dramatic, guitar solo drum thing at the end. So we still, even though we played, country music from the 70s and 80s, we still tagged it with some of our spin.
Oh yeah.
And so you have to do that. So and that was kind of an odd gig in the sense that, we weren't going to maybe convert, we weren't going to convert a lot of fans necessarily that night. But it was an honor to be part of that. But that being said, you have to kind of plan your opening acts where they make some kind of sense. Because if you just open for anybody and you're nowhere near that kind of sound, I mean, not even close, you're gonna have a problem, and you're not gonna have a good show. As far as the favorite person I've opened for, that would be really hard to say. I got the chance to open for James Brown one time, and that was really cool. his I don't know the guy's name, but his organ player, he actually carried a real B3 organ with him on tour, just like they did in the old days. Now I would never do that. I'm going to use a keyboard.
That's too much cost.
Oh, dude, those things. Have you ever tried to move one?
No, I've never tried to noodle on one. No
don't.
way.
They probably weigh 300 pounds or more. I mean, they're huge, and they're bulky, and that's just the organ. Then you got to lug the speaker, and then if they get rustled around the truck, that the motors and the gears can jam. It's a terrible idea. Anyway, he came out to get something while we were playing, which really he shouldn't have done. But he came out on the back of the stage while we were playing. The lights were not on back there. And he tripped on one of the extension cords and pulled out the power.
Ooh.
And so the whole PA went down. And we were doing this huge street party, you know? And so the sound man was like, well, you guys just stop playing while we get this fixed. I was like, we don't do that. So we just kept playing even though we couldn't hear anything.
That's the best way. Just go.
I'm proud to go ahead. I'm proud to say that when the power came back on, we were in the right place. We all were still together.
That's how in sync you were.
Yeah.
That's all right.
That's why I rehearsed my guys so relentlessly, because short of a nuclear explosion, I want us to keep going. I'm the band on the Titanic. Yeah, the boat's sinking. We might as well play.
Yes. I respect that.
Yeah. So so it's hard to, but yeah, James Brown was amazing. Playing with I mentioned the band earlier, Wet Willie. I opened for them, which was a real thrill. Opening for Ted Nugent and Bad Company was awesome. We opened for Smash Mouth. That was fun.
Nice.
They kept the people that was for the Georgia-Florida game, which is a big deal. It's a big college football game it has just massive amounts of people. Oh, yeah. And so we were up at the big stadium where they were doing it, and it was an outdoor stadium. So we were out there, and these guys kept trying to give us Smash Mouth's catering, and these caterers had come backstage and said, "Here's your food." I'm like, we don't have any food. And they're like, "Yeah, are you guys Smash Mouth?" Like, no, we're not Smash Mouth. Like, and they're like, "Are you sure?" Pretty sure. Yeah,
we would know. We're not.
Yeah,
we would know.
We're pretty sure we're not Smash Mouth. So that was pretty funny. And back then, one of the sponsors of that show was a company called Rockstar Energy Drink.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I know that.
Are they still around? I can't remember.
Yeah, I still see them. They're just not as prominent.
Yeah, so my drummer drank 2 of those, and it made him crazy. He was just like bouncing off the walls. So, if you're in a band, don't drink 2 energy drinks before the show is all I can recommend.
No.
So we've had some interesting times, but yeah, man, I've enjoyed
that whole show was high tempo.
Oh my God. It was he wasn't so bad when he was on stage, but when we got off stage and we started driving back home, he was driving like 90 miles an hour. And we're like, dude, you've got to slow down. So finally I had one of the other guys like, man, you're going to have to drive. He's just too hyped up to drive. So anyway.
That is wild. That is wild. I've had too many monsters studying in college to feel like my heart almost jumped out of my chest for some of that stuff. Yeah.
I mean, you have to be careful of that stuff. But I mean, that's back when back in the dark ages when these energy drinks were like a new thing.
Oh yeah.
And we were not. I think that was like 2005 or something. I think. And so it was kind of a new thing. He's like, oh, I'll try one. Oh, I'll try 2. Well, that was a bad idea.
Hey, that's all right. So Steve's fourth and final question is, of all the musicians you've collaborated with over the years, what was most unique?
Ooh, that's tough. Let me think about that. I would say, I think one of the things that I've loved was working with David Ragsdale, who played violin with Kansas, played violin with the Smashing Pumpkins, played violin. He was on the studio records for Smashing Pumpkins on Siamese Dream, and I think on Melancholy as well. There's some violin, and then he also, like I said, did Louise Mandrell, Smashing Pumpkins, Kansas. That was really fun to like stretch him outside of his comfort zone and say to him, and this is on my first album, just say to him, hey, I want like sort of like heavy metal guitar soloing on the violin, you know, stuff like that. And I thought that was really fun. And so that was a lot of fun. David was a real interesting guy. He toured. He travels around with a rowing machine, so he can keep fit between sessions.
Understood. Okay.
And he grinds his own coffee beans. He had like a thing where he would grind his own coffee beans so a serious coffee drinker. So but like for me, like I think I'm not saying those are bad ideas. I'm just saying I don't have the bandwidth to do that. I couldn't be bothered.
It's preferences. It's all it is.
It's like too much effort for a low yield. Like I'll just do some jumping jacks. You know what I mean? I just but I mean I'm not saying he shouldn't have done it. I'm just saying I could not do that.
No, that's understood.
That would drive me nuts. So, but anyway, he's a really interesting guy and a really fine player. And the thing that was so great about it is, he was in his 40s. I was in my 20s. He was working at a very high level in the industry, and I wasn't yet. And he was such a prince and was so easy to work with, and really listened to what I wanted and tried to give me what I wanted. And if he had an idea that wasn't mine, he's like, okay, well, we can do that, but what if we try this? And I was like, well, let's try it and see. I'm not. Hey, sometimes other guys come up with better ideas than I do. So whatever sounds best is fine with me. It doesn't have to be my idea. So he was really a prince to work with. And I'll say this other person that was very similar in that regard is my friend Randall Bramlett, who has played with Greg Allman and Steve Winwood and Traffic. And Bonnie Raitt actually recorded a couple of Randall songs on her albums, which is no small thing. So he's really amazing, and he's just such a talented musician. He sings, he plays keyboard, he plays saxophone. He's just super talented, and he's always lifted me up and tried to, like, he never said anything I wanted was weird. He always was game to try whatever I wanted, and eventually we got to work so many times together and so well together that I was able to say, Randall, here's my song. You know what to do. Just cut loose. Just do your thing. Yeah. And so eventually what I learned to do was to hire the players that I wanted and let them do their thing. That doesn't mean that I didn't give them some guidance, but mostly I just let them be who they were, and I brought them on the record because I wanted who they were to be on the record. So if they weren't right for the song, but I didn't ask them to play. So whereas when I first started, I would use the same set of guys and ask them to do different things. And sometimes they can, and sometimes they can't. So anyway, I've had a blast with all these different collaborations. There's another guy, Al Ches, that I met when I was in the Grammys in New York City in 2018. And we became friends in about 10 minutes. And my wife and I were walking at one of the Grammys events, and we've been schlepping all over New York with a guitar on my back, doing all kind of different showcases and stuff. And we've been walking everywhere because you walk mostly in New York.
Yes, you do.
And so we're up there, and so he's like, and we couldn't find a place to sit down, and we were exhausted. I thought I was going to die. And this voice from the darkness on my left side.
The darkness.
Because my wife couldn't see where she was going. It was real dark in there. So this voice goes, "Hey, you guys need a place to sit." I'm like, "Yes, we do." We sat down. I was like, "Hey, what do you do?" And I play trumpet. And so come to find out, not only does he play trumpet, but he was the trumpet player for 17 years on The Late Show with David Letterman.
Oh, no kidding. And that band is no slouch.
Those guys were amazing. And I don't know if you ever noticed it, but every time they come back from commercial break, I'd hear this really high trumpet note get the last note in every single time. And that was him.
He was fighting for it. It's like, remember me.
Yeah. And my whole life, every time I listened to The Late Show with Letterman, I'd be like, man, the trumpet player always gets the last note. And I would always laugh about it. And then here's the guy. And so he also played with like Tower of Power and a bunch of really cool bands like that. So we became friends. He collaborated on one of my songs, and nice. And I got to. So I've done so many. I've had so many blessings in that regard. I could go on forever, but we won't. But yeah, it's been amazing. I mean, I it's hard to pick just one, but those are just a few of the experiences that come to the top of my head.
Understood. Well, thanks for sharing. It's a lot.
Yeah, man.
Awesome. So my buddy John Germano, he asked.
Now that's a famous sounding name. That's good, John.
He's a sneaky bowler.
Okay, all right.
Like we had bowling night, and I looked at him. I'm like, you are probably really good. And he was.
Well, he's got the name that says fame. So keep that name, John. That's what will serve you well. It's got good alliteration.
Yes. So his question, some of these were already used. What artists do you gather inspiration from when you're writing music?
So when I'm writing music, I tend not to be focused on anybody else. I tend to be focused internally. So I'm not thinking about a sound or an artist or anything like that. So from the writing perspective, from the recording perspective, I'll say to myself, that's a good sounding record. One day I need to record a song that sounds like that. And I'll put that on the back burner. And then when it comes time to record something, now's the time that I may pull out that snare drum trick that I learned from listening to this album. Or now's the time I'm gonna. So I'll have those kind of things. So I think that the eclecticism of my music, because I'm inspired by things like I love Pavarotti. I sound nothing like Pavarotti. So you would never guess that Pavarotti was an influence, but I adore what he does. I totally am in love with Van Halen. It's one of my favorite bands. When I need to get a shot of energy when I wake up in the morning, maybe I'm not feeling real well or something like that, then I'll crank up some Van Halen, and that's how I'll get my day started. But I don't tap anything like Van Halen. I don't. I do tap some, but I don't. I'm not like that. So there's a lot of influences I have that you'll never hear. But somewhere in that stew of all that music that I create, I'll pull from that. So as a writer, I don't really pull from different artists, but as a recording, like as a mixer and a crafter, I'll maybe, hey, I loved how so-and-so did this thing on their song. I need to use that sometime. So that's kind of how it works for me.
Understood. I feel the same way, where you hear something cool when it's done in a certain way. It's got a different rhythmic feel on it. Maybe it's I'll make myself a note. I'll have my iPhone and I'll make myself a note and say, hey, remember that cool 7/4 thing that Adrian Belew did? I need to do that someday. And then you're like, here's that idea list already generated, done.
And I'm like, oh, now's the time. And I'll pull that out of my toolbox.
Nice. Cool. So my student Bryce, he asked, do your songs just come to you, or do you sit and think about these for a while?
Actually, that's a beautiful question, and I do both. Nothing's ever simple, Bryce. So the fact is this. As you have noticed, I'm a verbose person. I talk a lot. I have a lot of energy. I'm always laughing and joking and cutting up and stuff like that. But the first hour of my day, I don't feel so great. And I have to deal with some of the issues that the brain tumor left me with. And so I have a lot of medicines I have to take and all this stuff. So the first hour of my day, I'm very quiet. I'm very introspective. I think about things very deeply. I don't talk a whole lot. And I think about things. I've always been this way. And I think about things real deeply. And then once I'm done with that first hour and a half, I've thought about everything I need to think about for that day. Seriously, this is really true. Yeah. And then I could just be a complete goofball the rest of the day. And my wife will tell you that when we first met, she'd ask me a question. I'd answer her immediately, blah, 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 blah. She'll say, what do you think about so-and-so? And I'll say, blah, 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 blah. She's like, he's not even thinking about the question I just asked him. But eventually she realized that it really is true. I think about things. My mind works really fast and my mouth follows. So I think really fast. So after I'm done thinking at the top of the day, I tend not to have to be very introspective anymore. So what I do when it comes to writing is I'll hear something in the news, or I'll be thinking about an idea, or I have overheard a conversation, and I'll let those ideas sort of gestate in the back of my mind, and I'll let them just sort of come into fruition. And then when they do, I know it's time to write, and I sit down and write. So I don't spend a lot of time once I make the decision to write. It comes out very quickly. It's done very quickly. But I don't just sit down and write for no reason. I can do that. Like I've done jingles and commercials and all kind of stuff. So I can sit down and write if I have to. But if I don't have to, I prefer to let things just sort of marinate. And then when it's time for the song to come out, I'll sit down, and all the time I spent thinking about it kind of in the background, just kind of comes together and musically, and everything just comes out.
Okay. It's understood. I try writing for the dumpster and just scheduling time to make it happen.
That's great. Sometimes you have to do that.
What comes out.
Yeah.
And then try to document it as much as possible, like through Guitar Pro for me, so I can visually see it, remember it, hear it, and have it play back.
Yeah.
Figure out, am I truly in time? Is this truly at the BPM that I want? Is this truly in the right key? And then try to piece the other parts that are in the same key together to kind of fit, form, and function it.
Yeah. So I mean, what I typically do is, as I told you earlier, I usually hear the chords, the melody, and the bass line all at the same time, maybe even the drums. And I'll write something, and I'll follow the inspiration as far as it goes. And I don't force myself to finish if I'm not feeling it. Okay. I don't, but so I'll let it sit for a week. I'll come back and listen to it maybe a week later, and I'll say, am I still inspired by this? Am I still enjoying this? And then I will use my intellect to shape the horn parts and all the other stuff that goes with it. I'll be very conscious about those things. And then when it's time to go into the studio, I already have a pretty good roadmap. About 80% of what I'm going to do I've already thought about. So I just, at that point, it's just execute. And the thing is, where I'm a little different is I play with a click track, sometimes 10, 15 hours a day. Because I cut everything to a click track. So when I cut at the studio, I'm cutting everything to a click track. So I have a set of skills that I've developed over time that I don't have to really put any effort into anymore. When I first started writing, every time I had an idea, I would notate it. I would just ask someone that could see, hey, write this down real quick. Or this is before you had your phone in your pocket, you could record with it or whatever. And so and then it just got to where if I woke up at 3 a.m. with a song in my head, I would get up and go write. It didn't matter how long I've been in bed. I'd get up and go write and keep writing until I was done. And so, but now I've gotten to such a place that I don't lose the ideas. I don't lose the inspiration. In fact, one of my most popular songs is a Christmas song I wrote called Santa That Plays Guitar. And it's a stupid song, honestly. But it's just fun. It's just real silly, and people love it. I mean, it is one of my most popular tunes, and it's just a really silly song. Well, I got in the studio to record it, and I was going to listen back to the lyrics I'd written on my phone, and doggone, I erased it.
Ooh.
And so I had to rewrite the whole thing from memory, and then I know I didn't get some of it right, so I just wrote something new.
Yeah, and that's the improv.
So I mean, yeah. So the songwriting for me is kind of an interesting process. So there's layers of songwriting. There's the initial inspiration, which I never force, but then there's also okay, you've got to finish this. So you say, okay, I've got 25 good ideas. I'm going to take 10 of them and make a record. Now I'm going to go back and polish them all up. And I'm gonna fix a little flaw here, a little flaw there, and I'm gonna fix. So there's really a multi-layer process to it. I'm sorry that the answer was not simpler, but
no, that's understood. And it's not an easy process by any means, and it's something you record over time. I value the fact that you practice to click track so much more now that I'm tracking stuff.
Oh yeah,
because of how much of a difference it really makes when you go to sit down and record, and how much time it takes. When I
started becoming a professional producer, I decided early on I was going to cut everything to a click, or at least when I'm in charge. Well, let's put it this way: when I'm doing the work with my session musicians, and I'm playing guitar and bass, and I've got my session drummer in, I've got my session keyboard player, and I got my session horn guys in. We're all used to playing to clicks. So I cut everything to a click. Now I produce bands that do not play to clicks as well, but that's not my preference. And the reason that I like to play to clicks is because as a blind person, first, it gives everybody a common reference, but secondly, as a blind person, it makes editing so much easier. So when you have to edit something, like if you've got a click and everything's tied to that click and everything's just super tight, man, editing is just like easy.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's, so, you know, when you're in the studio business, time is money. So you don't want to spend 4 hours editing something if you could spend 30 minutes, you know. So that's the reason. But yeah, so I played a click. I've been playing through the click track for 20 years, you know, and so I have that skill, you know, ingrained, and I'm real picky. I'm real picky, man. And I've learned to play around the click as well. So like push and pull around it
ahead and
without
behind,
without being out of time. And so, you know, you've got to have, especially like when you're doing like more complicated things like dotted notes, where you're accenting things, and, you know, you're going to have a slight accelerando when you dot a note. It's just going to happen. You know, and the other thing is velocity equals tempo. So you got to be careful that when you're hitting harder, you know, that's going to make you play a little faster if you don't learn how to have that fine-tuned muscle control. So I can play faster without hitting harder. And sometimes I want that. Sometimes I want to hit harder and play faster. So you need to be in control of your body as much as reasonably possible. And, you know, that level is different for everybody. But yeah, I'm a click track fruitcake. I run it all the time. And, you know, I program my click tracks. So if I have songs that change meters and change tempo, and you know, I program all that stuff in. So we always have we have charts that we're working on, you know. Now at the same time, my In the Shadow of the Sun record was not cut to a click, because we recorded it at Sun Studio in Memphis as just for fun. It was me capturing the live band at that moment in time. And then when I got the files back, I said, yeah, this is pretty good. We should keep it. So we did a whole record in 3 hours, and which is ridiculous. But we were all in the same room. No fixing, nothing. You couldn't fix anything. And I was like, hey, can you give me a click track on channel 8? And they're like, no, we don't know how to do that. I was like, okay, fine, we don't need it. All right. So we just did a live in studio album. And our you know, we were very tight. And so we didn't have to have the click track. But again, when you don't have later on, I had to edit one thing, and it was a freaking nightmare.
Yeah, just trying to find it and piece it together.
Well, I had to get one of my sighted assistants to help with it, because there's no, I mean, you need to be able to see to do that.
Yes,
if there's no click, you can look at the waveform and kind of go, oh, there's the transient marker.
Yep.
So I was like, man, I get some eyeballs in here.
Yeah, somebody with better perception, please.
Yeah. Come over here. Yeah, so we did that. But yeah, so anyway, I mean, you know, I'm not saying you have to do click, but it's helpful.
No, for sure. I'm, again, practicing so I can get on that same level with you too. But Joey, that's what I had for you. Thank you so much for spending your evening with me here on Music Breakdown.
A pleasure, sir.
And it's been
I love what you're doing. To meet you. Well, listen, we'll stay in good touch, and hopefully I'll be coming in your neck of the woods maybe next year.
That would be awesome. I would look forward to it, my man. Seriously.
Well, listen, my friend, thanks for having me here, and thank you so much for teaching all these students and giving them such a great opportunity to learn from different people. I think that's amazing, and I applaud it. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you much, man. I'm blessed that I have awesome students and the opportunity to hang out with a guy like you.
Thank you, my friend.